So I've got a fun article from The Verge. NASA's latest Mars rover has the same processor as an iMac from 1998. So there's actually a couple articles on this. The Verge put one out, and I believe Engadget did as well. But I'm going to read through this article real quick. This is a processor that, if you're not familiar with it, the original iMac G3 had a 233 megahertz processor. And I really thought this was interesting because this is the second Apple computer I ever owned. I owned a Performa 400 when I was about 9 years old, and then later, about 15 years old, I was able to get this iMac G3, and it was, at the time, and especially for a 15-year-old, it was mind-blowing. I loved this computer. It was amazing. So it's kind of cool to see years later this processor being used in a Mars rover that was just launched. Alright, so it says here that NASA's brand new Perseverance Rover is the most advanced machine that's ever landed on Mars. But when it comes to rovers, state-of-the-art is a subjective term. Perseverance is running on none other than the PowerPC 750, a single-core 233 megahertz processor with just 6 million transistors that's most famous for powering the original Bondi Blue iMac, which you see right here, right? And so basically it goes on to say that yes, it's not nearly as powerful as modern chips, but it's been well tested. I believe this computer, the Bondi Blue iMac with this chip, was the highest selling computer maybe of all time, and especially at that time when it was released. And over the years it's been well tested, so it's reliable. Apparently it's been this particular chip has actually been on lots of other missions to Mars as well. It says it's the same type of processor that NASA already uses in its Curiosity rover. I guess they've used this before, but this is perhaps the first time this news made it out about the processor. So yeah, really cool here. Don't think there's too much else to be said about this. This processor was a PowerPC chip, which was developed, I believe, by Motorola. At that time in the 90s, Apple had the AIM Alliance, Apple, IBM, Motorola, and they had these RISC processors that were developed at that time for Macintosh computers. And at the time, in the early 90s, Macs used these RISC processors, PowerPC processors, and they were very fast. Probably a lot faster than, I believe they were faster than most regular PCs using Intel's and CISC processors. But as the late 90s came along and early 2000, the CISC processors from Intel started outpacing the RISC processors that were being built by Motorola and IBM. And I think one of the big issues is that they were too hot at the time for some reason. The IBM and Motorola just were not building the processors Apple wanted, so they switched over to Intel. And then the computers got pretty fast with the Intel Core 2 Duo processors and whatnot. But also, you may have known in the news recently, Apple has began the transition, switching back to RISC processors that they are developing and designing themselves that are super low power and very efficient and very fast. So it's just interesting to see this old chip. It's a G3 PowerPC RISC processor that was used in the iMac, and then they switched to Intel, and now they're coming back to RISC processors. It sounds like ARM RISC processors in the newer computers. They also, this article is also out on The Verge. I'm sorry, not The Verge, Engadget as well. Pretty much the same information, but yeah, really cool, fun article and a blast from the past.